In a land where the sun never fully rose and the night never entirely fell, there lived a girl named Alara, who wandered through the endless twilight. Her heart was a vessel filled with emptiness, a vast expanse of nothingness that echoed with a loneliness she could not escape. The trees around her whispered in the wind, their leaves trembling with secrets she could not understand. The rivers wept for her as they carved paths through the earth, but their tears were lost on her, for she had never known what it meant to be whole. Alara walked the same paths every day, tracing the edges of the forest with steps that had worn the grass thin beneath her feet. The animals watched her with eyes that gleamed like distant stars, but none dared approach her, for they sensed the void within her, and it frightened them. Her world was one of shadows and silence, a place where even the bird song seemed muted, as if the air itself mourned alongside her. One evening, as the sky shimmered with hues of violet and gold, Alara ventured further than she ever had before, drawn by a feeling she could not name. The forest thickened around her, the trees growing taller and their branches intertwining to form a canopy that blotted out what little light remained. She felt the weight of the unknown pressing against her, but she did not turn back, for something deep within her stirred and urged her forward. The air grew cool, and the scent of damp earth filled her senses. She came upon a clearing where a single tree stood apart from the others, its trunk twisted and its roots clawing at the ground as if trying to escape. Beneath its branches sat a figure unlike anything she had ever seen. It was a man, his presence radiating warmth that seemed to chase away the chill of the twilight. Alara's steps faltered and she stood at the edge of the clearing watching him. He was unlike the forest creatures who fled from her emptiness. He did not shy away. Instead, he looked at her, his eyes meeting hers, and for the first time in her life, she felt seen. It was a strange and unsettling sensation, as if the void within her had been touched by something tangible. The man rose to his feet and approached her slowly, his movements deliberate. As if he understood that any sudden motion might startle her, he stopped a few paces away, his gaze steady and his expression kind. There was no fear in his eyes, only curiosity and something else that Alara could not identify. She did not know how to speak to him, for her voice had long been silenced by her loneliness. But he did not seem to mind. He extended a hand toward her, his palm open and inviting. Alara hesitated, unsure of what to do. The emptiness within her resisted the connection he offered. But another part of her, one that had been buried for so long, was nearly forgotten, yearned to reach out. Tentatively, she raised her hand and placed it in his. The warmth of his touch spread through her like a flame, banishing the cold that had taken root in her heart. For a moment, she felt as if she might pull away, frightened by the intensity of the sensation. But he held her hand gently, not to restrain her, but to assure her that she was safe. They stood in silence for what felt like an eternity, yet also like no time at all. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath, as if it too was waiting for what would happen next. Alara felt a tear slide down her cheek, the first she had ever shed. It was not born of sadness, but of something she could not name, something that filled the void within her and made her feel alive. The man smiled, and though he said nothing, Alara understood. She understood that she was not alone, that the emptiness that had defined her existence was not permanent, and that she was capable of feeling something beyond the void. She let out a breath. She had not realized she was holding, and for the first time, she smiled back. The days that followed were unlike anything Alara had ever experienced. The man whose name she came to know as Kale stayed by her side, guiding her through the forest and showing her the wonders she had been blind to in her loneliness. He taught her to listen to the songs of the birds and to see the beauty in the way sunlight filtered through the leaves. He showed her how to feel the earth beneath her feet and to taste the sweetness of wild berries. With Kale's presence, the forest transformed from a place of shadows to one of light and life. The animals no longer feared her, and the rivers sang as they flowed past her feet. The void within her began to shrink, replaced by a warmth that grew stronger with each passing day. She found her voice again, though it was hesitant at first, and she used it to share her thoughts and feelings with Kale, who listened with patience and understanding. Alara discovered that love was not a single moment, but a series of small ones, woven together to create something extraordinary. It was in the way Kale laughed when she stumbled over her words, and the way he caught her hand when she tripped over a root. It was in the way he looked at her, as if she were the most precious thing in the world, and the way he sat beside her in silence when words were not enough. As the seasons changed, so did Alara. She no longer wandered through the forest aimlessly. Instead, she explored it with purpose, seeking out its hidden treasures and sharing them with Kale. She found joy in the simplest things: the sound of leaves rustling in the wind, the sight of a deer grazing in the distance, and the feel of Kale's hand in hers. Alara's heart, which had once been a vessel of emptiness, became a vessel of love. It was not an easy transformation, for there were moments when her old fears resurfaced, and she doubted whether she deserved the happiness she had found. But Kale's unwavering presence reminded her that she was not alone, and that she was worthy of the love she had discovered. One day, as they sat beneath the twisted tree in the clearing where they had first met, Alara turned to Kale and spoke words she had never thought she would say. Her voice was steady, though her heart raced as she looked into his eyes, which held the warmth and kindness that had drawn her to him from the start. She told him that she loved him, and in that moment, she felt the final remnants of the void within her disappear. Kale's smile was radiant as he reached out to cup her face in his hands. His touch was gentle, and his eyes shone with a light that seemed to reflect her own. He did not need to speak, for Alara already knew the truth. She saw it in his gaze, and felt it in the way his thumb brushed against her cheek. He loved her too, and together, they had found something that neither of them had known they were searching for. From that day forward, Alara and Kale faced the world together. Their love was a beacon that guided them through the challenges that lay ahead, and it illuminated the forest in a way that no sunlight ever could. Alara no longer wandered through the endless twilight alone, for she had found a companion who had filled her heart with warmth and taught her what it meant to be whole. And though the sun still never fully rose, and the night never entirely fell, the twilight no longer felt like a place of shadows and silence. It was a place of beauty and wonder, a place where love had bloomed against all odds, and where Alara had discovered that she was not destined to be loveless and lonely. She had found her light in the form of Kale, and together they created a world where the emptiness within her was replaced by the boundless depths of love.